What's up, y'all? Welcome to STWF Studios. Welcome to the Slaughta POD. I am Slaughta Dungata. Today's topic, Dear Mama. As I was sitting in the garage last night, pulling on nature's leaves, I was thinking, what am I going to do the podcast about? And I thought it's about time that I give a shout out to the lady who had my back through the thick and thin. And, just everybody, I can't say everybody because, as I'm finding out, as I'm meeting people, a lot of people, they don't even have their mother. What's up to my good homie, AKA Rome, who lost both of his parents when he was like 1 or 2 years old. And with me being raised with a mother, another one of my close partners, saying no name, he kind of the private type, I believe that even he had some issues where his mother was not a main staple in his life. And I always felt very blessed to have my mother, like most people. But I never even thought about the people that was raised without a mother. I was kind of like other fatherless males, kind of more licking my wound and trying to mask my insecurities from not having a dad or not having a father figure at home. But as we grew older, as we started growing up, not even older as kids, just about all my little partners just had mama. So, and you can see it in society. You really can. All these fatherless males, you can just see the impact. And, like I've told people before, I don't put on facades. I don't, I try to be as real and as transparent as I can. And I know for a fact, me being raised by my mother, like many other men, that I definitely picked up some of her loving, nurturing, sensitive ways. And, and I'm glad I did. Of course, I would still like to have had a man put some foot to my ass from time to time. Every male needs it. Mothers do their best. That maternal love, sometimes the maternal love, mothers can overlove, they can over nurture, they can over nurture to the point of enabling. And, so anytime I think about my mama, she was an amazing woman. She fled an abusive relationship coming out of what we call a wicked city, Dickinson, Texas, between Houston and Galveston. She fled with 4 kids and about $98 and fled to Dallas, leaving my abusive father. I mentioned it on the book of Slaughter. She knew that Dallas was the only place that he wouldn't look because, he knew the Houston area pretty good, Galveston, Hitchcock, Lamar, Texas City. She couldn't flee to one of those cities. He would find her. And he had got pretty bad, as I mentioned in my last many podcasts ago, about my father, Duke Walker. He would come home shooting guns over her head. He started doing cocaine and just really he was already pretty wild. So she couldn't take the abuse no more. She was worried about her life and our lives because he was just becoming increasingly erratic. Cut the head off of a Doberman pincher and hung it on a neighbor's fence. He was fighting all the time. So my mother finally got to the point where, she was like, I got to get out of this. This man is waking me up shooting bullets over her head into the headboard. So she fled to Dallas. And the first place we lived in was the West Dallas Projects. And one of my mother's many memories, we had those hard concrete floors and bunk beds, and I was always falling off, bumping my head. So when a lot of people were like, hey man, did you hit your head? Yes, I did. From the second bunk. So y'all can see why I'm just a little bit different. But that was one of the things that I remember about the West Dallas Project, them hard ass floors. I was hard headed, but boy, that floor wouldn't give. My mother once just came out of her room to a drunk Mexican taking a shit in our hallway bathroom. He just walked right in. He was drunk, pulled his pants down, and this is, all the stuff I remember. I really don't remember as much as I remember hearing about it. I was so young when we lived in the West Dallas Projects. I don't really remember that, to be honest. I've got the scars from it. And I remember my mother saying when we first got to Dallas, to downtown Dallas, she was so embarrassed because Dickinson, Texas, AKA the Wicked City, is a small little country town. And I had been around chickens and stuff like that. My grandfather, what's up, Lively Walker, in heaven, watching down on me. He had pigs, chickens, and stuff like that. He had a little, a little farm. And that's how he made money, selling meat, selling eggs, selling chickens. And he would get up and work from sun up to sundown. So when we got to downtown Dallas, and there was a bunch of pigeons, my mother said, and my siblings, I was too young to remember, they were so embarrassed. Kept screaming, look at them chickens, look at all those chickens. Because that's all I had known. Because in Dickinson, Texas, we had chickens. We didn't have pigeons. That was a city thing. So we probably moved to Dallas when I was about 2.5, I guess. But one thing I do remember is, boy, once we moved to Westgate Manor, you had Broadgate and Westgate. I do remember that. Boy, Dallas has always been a gritty, gritty city. Triple D, Dirty D. At this time, when we moved over there in Oak Cliff, I was about 4.5, 5 years old. And I had gotten to a fight with this little kid, and he cut my eye. Boy, I was crying, man, and I'm like, you're not supposed to be bleeding from your eye. I remember as a kid thinking, I done seen a bloody nose, I done seen a bloody knee. Man, this boy got my eye bleeding. Shit. Well, I'm whining, crying like a mug. And that was my introduction to Dallas, a whole different city, boy. It's always been pretty gritty, seriously. So that was my first memories of living in Dallas. And when we lived in Oak Cliff, my mother always, to this day, I'm a loner. And when I think about it, we was raised like that. My mother didn't have company coming over. Just my cousin Landry, may he rest in peace, Andre Kelvin, and her sister Wadine. We all stayed to ourselves. I had a few best friends. Eric Correa, what up? Ran back into him once I moved to GP. Armando Fernandez. I had a couple of homies. Had a little homie named Curly. He has spent most of his adult life in prison. I believe he's still in there. Hopefully he's free. And those were my best friends coming up in Oak Cliff. And when I got older, I thought I just kind of naturally stick to myself. When I think about it, I was raised that way, and I wouldn't have it no other way. So once we moved to Dallas, and I started, coming up, of course, hearing stories about my father, why my mother left him. And men, we can do a number on women. According to many people, my father was a ladies' man, a very nice looking man. And my father dogged my mother so much that she would not even look at a nice looking man. The dude had to be ugly, had to be fat, had to be something, because my father was a nice looking man. He was abusive. I guess he was pretty much a narcissist. So I've got one of my clients. She had a baby daddy with a six-pack, built up or whatever. He was real into himself, treated her bad. She only date fat dudes. She don't like. So it's amazing how we can take a type in our head, and a lot of times we relate beauty to pain. I know, even me myself, sometimes I will judge a woman if she is so put together, so beautiful, got a banging body, and she might be feeling herself that day and kind of dressed half naked. That's the woman I'm automatically going to ignore. Just instinctively. I'm going to look at her where I know she thinks she all that. She's showing her goodies. I don't even want to deal with that. She probably want a Ferrari. She probably want a Lamborghini. And the few times I have approached one of those superstar looking women, I was actually surprised to find some of them were so friendly and so open and, hey, how you doing? I'm like, damn, you act like you couldn't wait to speak. Men are so intimidated by me. Men don't approach me. This is so refreshing for you to just come right up to me and ask me my name. And that's when I realized, wow, so many people judge a book by their cover. So many people, and we do it subconsciously. If your baby was mauled by a pit bull, if you was mauled by a husky, you're gonna forever have this thing about huskies or pit bulls. Whatever it was that affected your life, that affected you. I've met Hispanic women that won't date Hispanic men. They was married to 2 or 3 of them, and they felt like, not at the same time, but they felt like they were too controlling. I've met black women that won't date black men. They feel like, they're too narcissists. They don't do this. They don't do that. I've met white women that don't date white men. I've met, like my mother, who has the criteria will not date a nice looking man. So, fellas and women, sometimes we can do a number on people with just the way we are. Sometimes one man can mess it up for all men. You got some women that was abused at such a young age, they'll never deal with any man, black, white, or brown. They'll only deal with other women. So I think it's very interesting, if that's the word I can use, when I look back at life, how my mother dealt with my father, and then the way I've been raised and how it has affected me. And the one thing I can say from the way I was raised, my mother did her very best. Her mother went to prison twice for murder. We talked about that. Her mother would come home with her head busted open from fighting. My mother would wake up, going to school with her sister, Creola Jenkins, may they both rest in peace. And they would be stepping over my grandmother and a strange man in there, ass naked. And this would happen 4 or 5 times a week, different men. That my grandmother had brought home from the party, the bar, the cookout, or whatever. So my mother really, really turned things around. She had my sisters going to Mountain View College, taking piano lessons, tennis lessons. Me and my brother fell in love, like with most dudes, with kung fu movie. We wanted to take karate. She went and bought us uniforms and had us taking kung fu in South Dallas from Master Lee's Kung Fu. We did that for a while. You know, as young boys, we lost interest in that. My brother saw Pumping Iron with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now we wanted to be bodybuilders. Mama went out and got us weights. Our lights was never off ever. We never missed a meal. And you know, dear mama, I salute you. You was a strong lady. I've got one daughter, and boy, I salute anybody with multiple kids because it is not easy. And she did it with 4 kids. On her deathbed, she was showing some regret. She saw the way I didn't give a damn about nothing, how I lived my life, how started getting incarcerated for little things and doing this and that. And she was apologetic to me for not raising me better because honestly, my mother just worked all the time. From when I was a young kid, 11, 12, 13, not 4 or 5 or nothing like that. But mama would leave for work at 6 o'clock in the morning and come back at 7 o'clock in the morning. She was a registered nurse. LVN. So I watched how hard she worked, and I really got accustomed to doing things alone. Once I started doing competitive bodybuilding, of course, on the amateur level, and powerlifting, I was one of the few kids that was glad my mother didn't show up. There was no pressure. I didn't want to be nervous. It's just so funny how you adapt to certain things. There were certain kids that would be upset if their parents weren't in the audience. I would be relieved. My mother came to one of my bodybuilding shows, and I had just got used to doing stuff by myself. My mother and my girlfriend came to one of my bodybuilding shows. And for me, that actually put more pressure on me. You know, everybody's different. Oh, they was never there to support me. So once I became a personal trainer, one of my clients, a Fort Worth police officer, he was very discouraged that I was like, do I got to show up to your show? Do you want me to show up? Because I was so used to doing stuff alone, I actually preferred it. When I go out and perform, sometimes I don't like people real close to me coming to see me perform. I don't know if some people can relate to that. It's like sometimes I'd rather do it around amongst a bunch of strangers. So that was the unique thing that I adapted to from mama always been working and not being there. When she was there, she loved me unconditionally. But the one thing I would warn mothers, my mother, like most mothers, she loved me so much, she was not stern enough. She would give in to me too much. Like, instead of standing on what she wanted, like, no, you on punishment, you know, that's detrimental to a young man. It's already very, very rare for a woman to raise a man. I'm talking about a real man, not a grown male. But ladies, single mothers out there, the worst thing you can do for a young man is just let him have his way. Cater to your sons. If you are catering to your son, you are creating a big P, a big that rhymes with wussy. You're just gonna create a big wussy. I literally definitely had to look at myself honestly and was like, you like a lot of these dudes, you can talk what you want to talk, you can try to get muscles. You was raised soft. You was raised by a woman. Once you realize that, hey, love. I'm so glad that I was raised with that love. I know people that didn't have their mother or their father. I couldn't imagine it. But I started taking strategic steps to toughen myself up. I started doing particular things to, I would listen to stuff that my father would do. I would, like most people, emulate men on TV. I'm the rifleman, I'm this and that. When you're a young man, the only thing you want to do is be the tough, strong superhero. You want to be the Tony Dorsett, the Walter Payton, the Mike Tyson. We have fantasies of that even without having real male role models in our presence. But what happens is when you've never had an example of a man, and many of us haven't, we start listening to what other people's definition of a man is. We start creating and manufacturing things we think a man is from stuff we've seen from our heroes on TV, from actors and stuff like that. So, I'm as grateful as I am that I had a mother. I'm realizing studies are showing that there's two types of kids that are raised successfully. And of course, there's exceptions to the rule. There are plenty of mothers and fathers that single parents that have raised successful children. But I find it interesting, and it makes sense to me. A dual parent household, two parent household, a mother and father. Of course, their kids are less likely to go to prison. Boys raised by a single father have the same success rate of staying out of prison as people raised with both parents. However, boys just raised by a mother alone, they have a higher rate of going to the penitentiary. And, they become statistics a lot more. And I don't think that's coincidence because most mothers, T.D. Jakes, as he would say in one of his sermons, they mama their boys to death. Mom, besides her showing me an example of a good work ethic, she really just kind of, I had no real boundaries. When we lived in Oak Cliff, it was different because I was the youngest and I had 3 older siblings. Mama, guess what Rodney did? Guess what he did? I had someone to watch out for me. Once we moved to Vegas, oh, it was game on. My brother went into deep depression. He missed Oak Cliff so bad. He had his partner, Anthony Stewart, what's up, his best friend. He had adapted and did not adjust to Vegas at all. Quit going to school in the 8th grade, just dropped out. He did not want to be in Vegas. My mother sent him to the wicked city, Dickinson, Texas, to live with my grandmother. He's out the house. My older sister, Michelle, moved to California with my Uncle Dewey. She's out the house. My sister Dee Dee was there, but she was like me, just a him, Rolling Stone. Me and Dee Dee, we kind of more alike when it comes to being people, like we're both people persons. Rocky and Michelle are kind of more laid back, kind of like, a little bit more to themselves. My brother's straight up antisocial. I guess we all kind of are. Michelle, I wouldn't say antisocial, but more so than me and my other sister. So my other sister, she was always gone. She might hang out with her friends literally 2 weeks at a time. She had friends she would stay with. So mama was working. I'm at home alone. There's nobody to watch me. Man, at 13 years old, 12 years old, me and this little kid named Charlie, my next door neighbor, his mother had died from cancer, may she rest in peace. We would be out at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, going to the store, stealing toys, stealing snacks. And 2 or 3 times the store clerks would see a little black dude and a white dude walking to they had Vaughn grocery stores back then. If y'all not from Cali or Nevada, y'all probably never heard of Vaughn's. We had one right across the desert. Here go our apartment. You can walk across the desert and this little strip of desert, because it's Nevada, and there was a store. And we were just walking to all these different stores, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, we'd be bored and hungry, and we would get toys to steal and snacks to steal and walk out. And on two or three occasions, the clerks called the police, not because we were stealing, because there was two. If I was 12, Charlie was about 11. There was two young kids at a grocery store 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with no parents in sight, no car pulled up. We just walked up and went in the store. And then Las Vegas had a curfew. I believe it was midnight for juveniles and stuff like that. So we often got the cops called on us, and we would usually leave before they got there. And a few times, they would catch us, and just we'd be sitting there talking to the cops with stolen goods on us, and they was just concerned about getting us home. And I remember my mother being woken up in the woken up. She had worked a double. Cops knocking on the door, and they got me in handcuffs. And I just remember my mother, the look on her face, watching them cops unhandcuff me. And when I think about it, for curfew violation, really the job to put me in handcuffs, but I remember that look on her face, the disappointment. And don't forget, in Vegas, she was working in a prison. So I'm sure, I know for a fact she didn't like seeing me in those cuffs. I remember that. But there was no real consequences for my actions. She was just so sleepy and tired. And, they didn't say I was at the store stealing. They just said, hey, he was out past this time, and she would get on me and go right back to sleep. She would have to punch that clock. But yeah, so I just remember the love she gave me when I wanted a dog. She really didn't want one in an apartment, but she let me get my first dog solo. Dear mama, may you rest in peace. She absolutely showed me just the strength of maternal love. That's why when I see single mothers today, I salute them in my spirit. I salute them publicly. I salute them out loud whenever given a chance, because I was raised by a single mother, and boy, it is not easy for a lady raising a young teenager, reaching puberty. I was getting in trouble, running with gangs in Vegas, getting us kicked out of apartments, just all kind of stuff. And we just don't know as young males the hell we cause on our mothers because they take it with a smile. I don't care what I was facing. When I was in the newspapers, Crime Stoppers Most Wanted, Mama was right there by my side, driving me to the Frank Crowley Court building. When I went in, she posted $1,500 to pay my bill to get me out, just for me to go be locked up again about 6, 7 months later, to go to prison. Mothers have put their houses up to get their sons out of jail. And that's not nothing mothers wouldn't do for their sons, but I'm encouraging you mothers, sometime let them boys sit in their jail cell for a little while. These streets ain't got nothing for them but death or a longer sentence. If you mothers out there, again, mama was apologetic to me. I told my mother, there was no manual on how to raise a man. There was no manual. Like, I was really telling my mother, you should be patting yourself on the back. You've never been in jail for a traffic ticket. The way you was raised, I've never seen you disrobe with some man laying drunk in the floor passed out. But still, as a parent, we always wish we could do more. And I'm gonna be honest with you, some of you mothers, unfortunately, are waiting until it's too late. I thank God when I did that aggravated robbery, we could have killed that dude. That was a brutal, as the DA put it, that was a brutal aggravated robbery. Split the guy's head open, broke his jaw, fractured his ribs. And if we would have struck that man one or two more times and he had died, my life would have been just gone. And some of you mothers are waiting too late. It seems innocent right now. He don't want to give up the video game when you back off. He don't want to give up the cell phone that you said he can't have when you back off. When you let your son run the household and he's a boy, when you let that boy drive, you are making him hell to deal with for everybody that comes after you. Like I try to tell the young men that I do mentor when I get a chance to mentor, the young men that I train, the world is not your mama. The world is not going to treat you like that. And that's why we have a lot of males that are just unmanageable. You can't work with them. There's nothing you can do with them because they have been taught act a fool if you want to get your way. Do the most if you don't get your way. And I'm really hoping there's some single mothers out there that can hear this message. Mama, you did the best you can. Love you to pieces. But you ladies that still got young sons, set up boundaries. Stand on it. Set your mark, set your standard, and enforce it. Do not do that in my house. Make them rough it sometime. If they do something that you don't approve of, it's unfortunate that nowadays, you got the kids that it's almost like the kids are in control. There's certain things you can't do no more. They can get the police involved, but there are certain things you can do. Today, like I say, most of these youngsters, if not all of them, are addicted to technology. Take their phones away when they're doing something wrong. But don't let them get away with anything because society's not going to let them get away with it. Society's already got a target on their back. And the easiest way for them to get them in that trap is for a young man to walk around feeling entitled, expecting something for nothing. Another thing that you mothers do is your sons are not fearing consequences because they know, shit, mama gonna go through hell and hot water to get me out of this. That's what a mama does. A mama protects you. But I just want to encourage you ladies not to overlove. Show your sons if you can show your boys some tough love, they're more likely to grow up to be successful, hardworking men. When you do not show your sons tough love, but just that mushy mama love, oh, my baby couldn't have did that. Oh, they lying on my baby. And the worst thing you can do is make excuses for your son because then you're teaching them to make excuses for himself. Now, one thing mama did give me is accountability. I've always been able to hold myself accountable in any situation I've done. And, she did many good things. She made sure that I had a vocabulary and I knew how to talk. She would have me reading. She would have me, my handwriting is terrible. That's just something genetic, I guess. But she would try to have me writing stuff. That was her form of punishment. Write this, write that. She would try to expose us to stuff. And I'm just grateful because my whole life people have told me that I've been pretty articulate with words and I speak well. And I give credit to mama for that because I've had partners of mine, who literally, some of them, and right now as grown men, cannot talk in complete sentences. So, it's make sure you educate your boys, of course. And like I've mentioned before, try to get your boys around some real men, some male role models as often as possible. Football coaches, trainers, just expose them. Just like these devices, this technology has been poisoning our kids. Sometimes you as a parent, send your kids some motivational speeches from some men talking about what it takes to be successful. Show your son some of the statistics that show how men are getting softer and weaker. And when your boy does something like clean up the garage or do something, praise him. You don't want to. It's a fine line. You don't want to be too soft on your sons. Anytime your son stands as a man, when he does something, if you're struggling with something and your son come takes it out of your hand, mama, let me carry that this heavy. Make sure that you let him hear you on the phone. Man, my son took this heavy package from me. He's just such a hardworking man. My son, he knows how to respect ladies. Yeah, you got to do little stuff like that. Let your child hear you praising them to other people. Praise them to themselves. When they mess up, let there be consequences for it. You will not regret it. Your son can live without that phone. No matter how much your son pouts and throws tantrums, quit giving in to their every wishes because you are creating a lazy, soft manipulator. You are creating somebody that don't want to work for nothing. You're going to create somebody that feels entitled to everything. And I'm seeing it in society today. Boys being mama to death. Dear mama, I love you to pieces. Boys, once you grew up and once you notice that, hey, mama, you raised me, you fed me, you clothed me, you did your best. I love you. I salute you. Once you get to the age where you know and you can recognize, it's up to you. Daddy wasn't around. As my cousin Andre Jenkins would say with his throwed off self, we got to become our own fathers. Sometimes we got to become our own coaches. That worked for me in life a lot. I would look up to role models like Schwarzenegger, Lee Haney, there was certain Tony Dorsett. I would look at football players, Ray Lewis, and I would look at men that I thought walked and talked like real men, and those would be my motivation. Rocky raised us. Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, Rocky Balboa. Most young men can relate to that. Most young men wanted to be that David that defeat that Goliath. And now we got so many young men that want to be little princesses that turn into queens. And, if it comes like that, if a man was born with very, very low testosterone and high estrogen levels, and that's just who he is, that's just who he is. But I don't feel like it is proven that this society is just killing the testosterone levels of our future kings. This society is ruining the very fabric of manhood in our community because, marriages are expected to fail. This whole system is designed to capitalize on our mistakes. And the whole single parent households, the whole Section 8, if you look at it, it's just everything in this society. The easy stuff is a trap. You can come live here, you ain't got to pay no bills. But you can't have no man. You got a man, we'll take your food stamps. It's just got to be you and your kids. I want them boys being raised by their mamas. Yes, I do. Oh, but you know what? We know for a fact. We know you're gonna get a little dope dealing boyfriend to come in that apartment. We'll snatch him in the prison, but hopefully before we take him to prison, he gonna rub off on your sons, and they're gonna try to sell it to him. We'll get them too. So this whole system has traps and snares. So beware of that. And if you want to prepare your sons to make it through this jungle, to all of my single mothers out there who love unconditionally, especially for the mothers who have been ripped apart, getting news of their son's demise, you cannot stop your kids from making wrong choices. You can do your best. Sometimes young men especially are still going to jump off the porch and do what they want to do. You cannot protect them every second of every day. But people, a lot of you ladies are fixing to walk in those shoes, as Keisha Holloway would say, with your sons, dying from this fentanyl, dying through gun violence, or going to do a lengthy, long prison sentence if they're not getting a life sentence or double life or lethal injection. And y'all are slowly fattening them up for the kill just from being too soft on them, just from just giving them whatever they ask for. If they buck back, if they argue, if they whine a certain way, you back off. Like I say, I had to go to prison one time. Mama, I love her to death. She loved me to pieces. But I realized my mother never really had high expectations for me. And why do I say that? My mother was raised watching how black males were discriminated against. She was, she talked about that. She watched how hard it was for black males in the system. And when she started working at the prison, she would try to drop nuggets to me, but you could just tell. My mother, hey, she was real big. As long as my son don't turn out gay, she wanted a real man, and I respect that. And as long as he don't get killed or go to prison, which I ended up one time, that was her thing. She was like, you ain't got to go be the famous rapper. You ain't got to be the next NFL player. Just be a real man, stay out of trouble, and please don't die. You know, and unfortunately, a lot of us, we don't have high expectations for our kids because we've seen what happened to our fathers, our brothers, our uncles, our cousins, caught up in this vicious cycle. And a lot of us will settle for, if I can just keep them out of that vicious cycle, if I can just keep them away from that hill, they can, man, I've seen it. Son, you ain't got to get your own house. You can live with me. You ain't got to do this and that. Take the trash out and cut the grass. You ain't even got to work. Just help me fix stuff sometimes. Sometimes our mothers, they just will settle for the bare minimum. Steve Harvey talks about the flea with the 36-inch vertical. Once you put it in the jar, the flea only jumps as high as its environment, as high as the environment allows it. And that's kind of what we're doing as the fathers. Definitely, I'm not giving them a pass. That's why there's so many single mothers, because the fathers are deadbeat and they ain't there, and women are just being women. Very few women can really tap into that drill sergeant mentality, that coach mentality, and know the best thing I can do is put foot to that tail. The best thing I can do is make sure that there's consequences when he do something wrong, and to make sure I praise him when he does something good. So we got to take that lid off that jar that Steve Harvey talks about, so our young men can get back to jumping 36-inch verticals instead of only as high as their environment teaches them to jump. If the environment you have your young men in has a low ceiling, I really encourage you to expose them to different environments. I really would advise you, if you can't take them there, let them see it. Talk to them about it. Constantly encourage them, because we got a lot of things in this world fighting for our kids' attention, young men and young women, especially if you're a single mother raising a girl or boy. It is not an easy task, but do not fatten your kids up for the kill. Oh, here you go. You can have that. You can have it. You can have it. And when I say fattening them up, yes, some of y'all are literally doing it. I'm looking at these kids eating anything they want to, neglecting real food, eating junk food. But I'm talking metaphorically speaking, fattening them up for the kill. The way you can do that, sometimes it's just by doing nothing at all, turning the blind eye. That's something else a lot of our mothers are doing. My mother wasn't quite that bad as far as being my friend instead of a parent, but some of us are turning the blind eye, talking like your kids talk. Oh, that's the ops. Stuff like that. You know your son ain't working. He hanging around all these shady characters, and you still like, son, give me $100. Thank you. Oh, mama, here, mama, you can have $500. Some of our mothers start turning the blind eye, finding something in their room, might look like a foreign substance, might know what it is, might know it's weed, might know it's cocaine, might know what it is, but just kind of get caught up like some of these girls in the street. Hell, as long as he bringing in money, I don't care what he does. Some of our parents are in denial. My baby's mama, Drika Postel, had a son named Courtney. He starts wearing all red all of a sudden. Two Crips try to fight him, come knock on the door. She answers the door. There's a dude hanging around the corner trying to fight him. I'm like, baby, your son is trying to be a blood. No, he is not. He just likes red. His shoes red, his laces are red, everything's red, and Crips are steady trying to get at him at your house. Boy, my baby's mother, very intelligent, been working for a law firm for over 25, 30 years. Went to court reporting school, would tutor people in court reporting school. But when it came to her son, I was fresh out of prison. I was fresh off the streets. Your son is wearing all red, and Crips instead of getting at him. Went to one Whataburger, they shot up the car. Of course, she got older. Mama, I was a blood back in our school. She don't even remember the conversation. She didn't want to hear when I was trying to tell her that her son was trying to be a blood. And that's the problem with a lot of our parents, our mothers especially. They only can see the good in their boys. It's never their fault. You helping them make excuses. It's always somebody else's fault. Well, it's not going to be somebody else's pain when it's time to bury him. It's going to be yours. It's not going to be somebody else's pain when the judge hit the gavel and say 50 years. That's going to be your pain. So people, ladies especially, us men, we should definitely stand up and man up and really try to be a part of our kids' life. Sometimes it's better that the father's not there. As much as I wanted my father in my life, as much as me and other males, as many insecurities that I have dealt with and sometimes still deal with from not being raised by a man, I realized something, and my brother dealt with the same thing, wishing we had our father. Hearing all of the stories of how strong he was, how he would pick up these barrels full of slop and flip them with one hand. Hearing all those amazing stories, we wanted to be a part of it. We wished he could have beat our ass and been there for us. But when I look at the example my father would have laid before us, fighting, shooting, beating my mother, it's best, Duke Walker, may you rest in peace. I know you was not perfect, but it's best we was not raised around that. I just now got my temper under control maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Had I been raised around my father shooting people, killing dogs, beating women, beating my mother, that would have effed me up. I would have been a woman beater. I would have been, I probably would have known a little bit more about mechanics and construction and manly things. But had I been raised around my father, but the stuff I got into on my own, had I been raised around my father, I would not be here talking to y'all today. I would definitely have been dead already in prison. So, ladies, sometimes it's best that low down deadbeat is not in your kid's life or your life, especially if they're going to teach him how to beat women, cheat, scam, live off women, not work, and stuff like that. But if you are in that situation, ladies, sometimes you are the best option. And if you are the best option, if you really, really love your kids, pull back some. If you really love them, especially a young man, if that boy falls and scrape his knee, he is not going to die. If that young man does not complete something you told him to complete, there should be immediate and swift consequences. And there should be some consequences to make him say, shit, to hell with that. I'd rather just cut the grass and take the trash out and, clean up my room. I'd rather go wash your car and do this and that to have to deal with this and that. And one thing you're going to find out about young men that a lot of people don't know, most young men actually like to work. But they will never know that if they are always let off the hook. Encourage your sons to have a good work ethic. Give them tasks to do. Of course, when they're in school age, they're going to have things to do. They're going to have homework. They're going to have. And your kids, your sons can help you out. They're going to tell you what they want. Bam, that's perfect. You want to play football? There's something he wants. He has a passion for something. You take that passion and you use it. If you want to play football, you're going to have to keep your grades up. The school going to demand that anyway. But not only do you have to keep your grades up, you got to do X, Y, Z. You want to do whatever. You want to start creating your own video games. You want to become an IT dude where, whatever. Okay, I will send you to school for that. I will get you these, whatever you want to do. I will help you, but you got to help yourself. You got to help me. So when your sons tell you what they want to do, don't just listen and just go out and get the video game or sign them up for the basketball team, sign them up for the football team, go get that puppy, go get that $5,000 video game system. Even if you got it. Oh, is that what you want to do? Cool, earn it. Okay, you want this? That's how life gonna do them. When they go up to work, hey, I don't want to come to work, I just want to check. They're gonna look at them and say, well, you in the wrong place, homeboy. You better go wait in that welfare line. So the same thing, when your sons walk up to you, call you, text you, FaceTime you, tweet you, or whatever, and tell you what they want, the ball is now on your court. That's how you can start building men. My son really wants this. Show me you want it. Mama, what you mean, show me? Well, I've been noticing you've been late for this. You've been forgetting to take out the trash. Show me you want it. And don't make it so easy. Okay, if you clean up that room that you should have did anyway, that you've been neglecting for 3 weeks, if you clean that up, then we'll go get that $5,000 a game system. No, no, no. You're not finna get it, first of all, because you haven't been doing what you're supposed to do for 3 weeks. If you want that game system, meet me halfway. Legally go out, and if it's $500, you legally go out and make $2,500, just like a true math teacher. Don't just cheat off somebody's paper and come show me the answer. You got to show me how you worked it to come up with this equation, with this answer. Show me your work. Then I know you got the lesson. It's easy to say, oh, 2 plus 2 is 4. It say 4 on her paper. What's the answer 4? How did you get that? Don't just tell your kids, come up with $2,500 and I'll meet you halfway. Then they might be tempted to go out there and sell something laced with fentanyl. Show me what you're doing. Hold them accountable. And accountability is one of the biggest reasons we are where we are right now. A lot of mothers are not holding their sons accountable. Dear mama, I love you. Love everything you did for me. You was a solid woman, worked very, very hard. And on your behalf, I'm talking to the other mothers out there. And when you look at your life, when you look at how you was raised, hindsight is 20/20. I'm 51 now. Of course I can see things now that my mother could have did better. That's over with. I'm grown. She's gone. But for the mothers that are still here, for the mothers who still have sons at those impressionable ages, that it's not too late to keep them out those gates. It's not too late to keep them out of those caskets. For y'all, you do not want to walk in those shoes. Quit buying those boys those expensive shoes that they haven't earned. Quit allowing them to have girls kicking in their room in the house that they're not paying the bills in. Quit overlooking the money that they got and they're not working. Start paying attention to some of the rap lyrics that they writing, some of the rappers that they listening to. Because especially if there's no father figures at home, their rappers are their pastors. Their favorite rapper is their father figure. Their favorite rapper is their mentor. And if he say Papa Molly, they're going to Papa Molly that may be laced. If he say F these hoes, go get that bag and that dough, they're going to disrespect women and put money over everything, even the respect of their queens. So, dear mama, that's to all the mamas out there. Dear mama, dear mamas, please help us out. And please quit mamaing your boys to death, because we have to deal with them. And it's not easy to deal with any young man who is feeling entitled, filled with feminine tendencies and ways and points of view. It is not easy for us to deal with that. And the pain is going to come back on you. So that's my message to you ladies out there, to you single mothers. Make your son stand up, make a man up to the best of your ability. Thank y'all for tuning in to STWF Studios. Make sure y'all check us out, Slammin' or Jammin'. We got some new stuff popping off with the Hot Topic Tuesday. I know a lot of the fellas, and some of you ladies gonna like this, but yeah, we got a lot of good things popping. Please don't forget that we are doing a Renegade watch party Sunday. Y'all just pay attention to our page and see what we got going on out there in YouTube world. We're doing big things right here at STWF Studios. And I just want to thank y'all again for tuning into the Slaughta POD.